ever since. I started out with no qualifications and no money, but still managed to become a multi-millionaire. And a big part of that was down to avoiding the 7 things I'm going to be sharing with you today. The first thing to avoid is working for only money. Imagine for a moment that you got a boring but well-paid job. You quickly start stacking some nice cash as your earnings grow. Your friends will think that you're absolutely killing it, and your parents would probably be pretty proud too. However, over time, your earning potential would start to plateau. This is path A. Now, imagine instead you get a challenging but lower paid job. You might struggle for a couple of years as you improve and adapt. You may even struggle to pay the bills. Your friends will probably think you're falling behind, and your parents may not agree with the path you've taken. However, over time, your earning potential will start going through the roof. This is path B. So, what's the difference between these 2 examples? Well, path A prioritizes money early on, whereas path B prioritizes 2 key things: skills and equity. Every self-made millionaire I know has followed path B, as it's the only way to build that kind of wealth. As I mentioned, I left school at 16 with no qualifications. However, I immediately went out looking for jobs and actually got offered more than 5 opportunities. So I had a big decision to make. Which should I choose? I decided to become a carpenter's apprentice. The pay wasn't great, but I knew the skills I'd learned would be extremely valuable, so I prioritised those. There was no way I was going to get equity in the business, but at least I was working for more than just money. That job taught me a lot, and although I was forced to quit after being relentlessly bullied by my manager, I still use many of those skills today when I'm designing my best-selling brand of radio-controlled planes that I sell across the world. By learning a wide range of high-income skills, it makes it almost impossible for you to ever be broke again, as you become your greatest asset. I like to think every job I had when I was younger added to my skill set like a Swiss Army knife. Nowadays, I'd recommend prioritizing online-based high-income skills such as copywriting, video editing, and coding. The demand for these skills is only growing, and I can speak from experience that there is a huge skill shortage at the moment. Sure, there are lots of people doing those things. However, 99% of them are just not up to standard. Honestly, your competition really isn't that tough. Now, let's move on to the second thing, equity. This just means owning a percentage of a business so you can benefit from the profits. My radio control model brand is a perfect example of this. You can gain equity in a few different ways. The most obvious way, and the way I did it, was to start the business myself. However, you can also gain it by working for it if you're extremely skilled in certain areas. This is known as sweat equity. Lastly, you can purchase equity in certain businesses, although I wouldn't recommend this as much unless you have the skills that can help accelerate that business forward. My friend Simon Squibb often goes around in public telling people to start their own businesses or ask for equity from their boss. While I 100% agree with the sentiment, you need to have some self-awareness with this. Firstly, it's worthwhile working for someone to gain skills before starting a business of your own. Secondly, you need to be realistic. I didn't think for a moment that I'd get equity in the carpentry business when I was an apprentice. So when you ask, make sure you have a solid case for why you deserve it and how you can add value to the business instead of just taking from it. You need to first focus on becoming someone worthy of equity. The main takeaway here is that too many people get blinded by money, forgetting the importance of skills and equity. This is the biggest trap. The more you obsess over earning just money, the less you'll likely make in the long run. The second thing to avoid is buying a luxury lifestyle. Picture yourself cruising through Dubai's sun-drenched streets in a bright yellow Lamborghini. You pull up to a swanky restaurant and order a $500 fillet steak without batting an eyelid. How does imagining that lifestyle make you feel? Pretty successful, right? Well, here's the truth. Most people you see living this way are far from successful. The majority are paying for cars they can't afford, taking trips to Dubai on credit cards they'll spend 5 months paying off, and ordering steaks at Salt Bay's restaurant that leave them with a bill they can't handle. These people are living a lie, pretending to be rich while drowning in debt. It's all smoke and mirrors, as it's much easier to impress others on social media than build real wealth. Seeing people live these luxury lifestyles might tempt you to start playing the flexing game too, as you feel like everyone is living a better life than you. However, this is far from the reality. In fact, 37% of Americans can't afford unexpected expenses over $400. 39% worry they can't pay their bills. And 60% of American households can't afford to buy a new car. Once you've made your millions, you can buy whatever you want. That's the point of becoming wealthy. However, in the early days, you can't live like a king and build wealth at the same time. Instead of buying depreciating items like flashy cars, designer clothes and dining in expensive restaurants, invest in assets such as stocks, shares, crypto and real estate. These assets will increase in value and generate income that you can then use to do whatever you want. The third thing to avoid is doing everything yourself. You might be really great at what you do, but no matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to outcompete a group of talented people working together. Look at anyone who's made it big in sports or business. If you do some digging, you'll see they all had help. Let's take Elon Musk as an example. On the surface, it might appear like he's a genius entrepreneur who's achieved everything single-handedly. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. He was part of the group that launched PayPal. When eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion in 2002, these newly wealthy tech experts spread across the industry like a virus. Now they're known as the PayPal Mafia, as they've become such a powerful group. After leaving PayPal, they started many successful companies. These include big names like YouTube, Yelp, LinkedIn, and SpaceX. They often invest in each other's projects and give advice. But what if you're not aiming to launch the next billion-dollar company and instead just want to earn some extra money with a side hustle? Well, a lot of older business owners are kind of lost when it comes to everything tech-based and using the internet for their companies. I mean, a lot of them don't even know there's online tools for literally everything, whether it's managing your team, handling invoices, keeping track of projects, or even building a website. I don't blame them, as back in the day, we didn't have any of these things, but now the younger generation has a real advantage. So if these older business owners don't know how to do a lot of this online stuff, and they understand they can't do everything themselves, guess who they need? You. You can help them bring their businesses into the 21st century and make a lot of money in the process. It's all well and good saying this, but how could you actually do it? Well, if you want to give this a try, then I'd recommend using an all-in-one management platform. Odoo is a great choice as it includes the tools I just mentioned and more all in one place. Here's a great example of a website that needs a proper update. It looks like it was built over 10 years ago. Let's jump on Odoo and make something a bit more up to date. So I'm going to go over here and select the e-commerce app option. Now let's fill this in. I want a business website. There we go. And I want for my gardening business. After this, I've got the option to choose my color palette here, but instead, I'm just going to add their logo so that Odoo just builds a palette based on their brand colors. Now we've got to pick a theme. All these look pretty good, so let's go with this one. I can use the drag and drop feature to easily edit the page and customize images. They also have this cool AI tool to help me out with words. Let's fast forward about 30 minutes and I'll have something pretty cool to show you. Check this out, it's way better than the old website in my opinion. You could make some serious cash helping out older business owners with all the different apps on Odoo, or even use it to manage your own business. I reached out to Odoo to see if they wanted to sponsor this portion of the video. They agreed and are also giving you your first application free for life with unlimited support and hosting. And the cherry on top, Odoo offers a personalized domain name for 1 year. So if you want to give this a try, then check out the link in the description. The fourth thing to avoid is having too many inputs. Do you ever feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions? This happens with everything in life, from side hustles to fitness training. Everyone seems to have a different opinion on what you should be focusing on. It can look a little bit like this. This is you, and these are the people telling you what they think you should be focusing on. For the sake of simplicity, let's just call them inputs. All these inputs create hundreds of paths you could follow, like becoming a doctor, entrepreneur, joining a family business, getting a stable 9-to-5 job, traveling, and having a family. Let's call these your potential paths. The sheer number of these pathways can create something called cognitive overload, which is where your brain simply can't cope with the overwhelming amount of information and choices. So what's the solution? Well, I've always started with my end destination in mind and worked backwards. Of course, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in the future. However, I had a decent idea. I then made sure to only listen to inputs that helped me reach those targets. The clearer your goal, the easier it becomes to select the right inputs to help you achieve it. So limit the number of opinions you receive and prioritize quality over quantity. Most people have too many opinions being thrown at them, but not from experts. Cut out general opinions and instead seek expert advice. This could come from a mentor, someone successful in your field, or even educational videos from experts like myself. By doing this, you'll get more valuable, focused, and specific guidance for your end goal. Remember, even when you work your way backwards, you still don't need to know everything at once. Fully listen and implement what you learn from an input, and then when you're facing another challenge, you can seek out more inputs that will help you overcome it. If you don't do this, then you'll get mental fatigue, which can lead to decision paralysis, where you find yourself unable to take action or move forward. Some people might even mistake this for being lazy, but in reality, your brain just gets overwhelmed. The fifth thing to avoid is being ego-driven. Let me start by saying this. Arrogant people won't even finish this video. They think they already know everything, so why bother sticking around? But that's exactly the problem. Arrogance blinds you to the opportunities that could genuinely change your life. Ego-driven people are often too focused on the big picture, constantly dreaming of the end goal. This might sound productive, but it's a dangerous trap. When you're always looking too far ahead, you end up overlooking the small but crucial steps that lead to true success. For example, some might be tempted to scroll through this video just to see all 7 things rather than sitting down and actually absorbing the knowledge in each one. But by doing so, they miss out on the valuable insights that could fast track their journey. When you're too egotistical, you start to believe that you don't need advice from others, especially those who might know more. Money I made. There's also a bit of a twist because I've invited a guy called Tom round who's never invested in his life. He doesn't have a job right now and he's been finding things really a little bit tough. While he thinks he's coming around for a simple how to invest for beginners tutorial, I've got a surprise planned for him. I'm actually going to give him some money to jumpstart his investing journey, as I would really have appreciated that at his age. If you like this idea and you want me to do it with more people, then make sure to smash that like button to let me know. I'm really excited for this one. I can't wait to see his face. He'll be arriving any minute now. So we're here with Tom. How are you?
I'm not too bad, yeah. A very difficult time at the minute. You know, I've been looking for a new career path and a new job.
I know you've spoken a little bit about being interested in investing.
Yeah, I am very interested, but I don't know that much about it actually. I mean, I've been watching a lot of your videos, my friends have been watching a lot of your videos and they've actually started investing, so I'd like to give it a try.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good to know because that's what we're trying to push out, to get young people investing early. So Tom, we've made a video recently where I invested $100 into lots of different investments, and during this video we're going to see how those investments went. Should we dive straight in?
Definitely.
Let's do it. So this is the first investment. This is a high interest savings account and we invested $100 and at the moment that's had a return of 0.04%. And the reason it's lower than when we started is because they lowered the interest rate. So our profit is 4 cents.
4 cents? That doesn't seem like a lot. Why would I invest in that?
So this investment isn't about the interest you're going to gain, because nowadays it's really hard to find a really high interest savings account. The real reason one of these is so valuable is because you can use it as a backup fund, and you should have in there around about 4 to 5 months of your living expenses.
Why would I need that?
Well, the reason is because if you have an emergency in your life, I mean, you might have a flat tire on the car or the engine in the car might blow up, whatever the reason, you've got the cash to hand to be able to sort that problem out immediately without having to go and borrow the money, which is going to cost you a high amount of interest.
So basically, it's not about the money you make, it's about the money you save.
You've got it. Something a lot of people don't know, but 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So by doing this, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
Well, that's where I want to be.
The second investment we made was into gold.
Oh, I love a bit of gold.
Well, we all like a bit of gold, and we invested $100 into this. The return on this was minus 0.98%, which means We lost 98 cents.
So why would I invest in something that loses money?
Because it protects you against inflation.
What's inflation?
Well, think of it this way. This dollar has actually lost 95% of its value since 1913. And that's why your grandma and your grandparents always say they could buy so much more with their money when they were younger.
Well, that makes sense, but how does that link to gold?
Well, that's actually an easy one, because as your dollar loses value, gold generally goes up in value. So by investing your dollar in gold, you're keeping it a lot safer.
Well, how come you lost money?
Well, because the gold market always fluctuates. So gold basically moves in the opposite way to inflation. As inflation goes up, the price of gold goes up.
I never really thought about it like that. Do you just buy blocks of gold?
Well, you can do that, but I prefer to invest into ETFs and ETCs, which means you can buy and sell gold much, much easier.
So what's an ETF?
An ETF is an exchange traded fund, which means they hold the gold for you. You don't have to physically hold it and put it in a safe or anything like that. They store it all over the world, and there are billions stored up, and you can actually buy and trade it on the stock market.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
So just to finish this section off, gold is a very, very rare thing. You can't make any more of it. Well, you can, but it's too expensive to make it, so you wouldn't. So it won't lose value the same way that money will. Unless, of course, Elon Musk finds a great big meteor that's full of gold, of course, and he might do that. Investment number 3 was an S&P 500 index fund, and we invested again $100. Our return was 1.84%, which gave us a profit of $1.84.
Well, that's a good profit, but what's an index fund?
Owning a stock is like owning one cow, whereas owning an index fund is like having the whole herd. So imagine if you own just that one cow and it dies, you're out of milk. But if you own a small piece of all the herd, then if one dies, it really doesn't affect you. For example, what we chose is the S&P 500, which is the 500 top companies in the USA, such as Amazon, Apple, and now even Tesla.
So I can invest in all these companies in one go?
Yeah, you certainly can, and the fees are really low because it's passively managed. They don't have experts managing all the different stocks. And pretty low risk because it's diversified over all these different companies.
So I'm not going to lie, Mark, but you're only making a profit of $1. Why should I care?
Well, the thing here is that $1.84 is only over a month and a half. And if you actually invested $100 at 8% growth per year over 45 years, you would have over $500,000 in your account.
That sounds amazing.
And do you know what? That $100 a month can just be by having a few less coffees from Starbucks or doing a side hustle. It's easily found and invested into an index fund every month. Investment number 4 is in a REIT, and that stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And we've invested again $100. Our value has actually dropped by 0.4%, which is a bit of a pain, but we did get a dividend, which is really cool, of 57 cents, which means we are actually in profit by 11 cents.
So what's a REIT?
So imagine you've gone round and you've borrowed lots of money from all your friends, and you've got enough now to go and buy a property, and you rent it out. And of course, because you're a nice guy, you split all that rent with your friends.
So that dividend, is that a share of the rent?
Yeah, that's spot on. And it's from things like offices, hotels, things like that are owned by commercial companies. And because they have to sign such long leases, it's a really secure income.
So this is how I can get into real estate without buying a property?
Yes, think of it a bit like, I own the front door, you might own a window, your other mates might own half a dozen bricks. So you all own a little bit of it and then get paid the rent in return.
I've always wanted to go into property, so this could be my way in.
Investment number 5 is sort of my bread and butter. It's business, buying and selling. And I actually did some research and found a model engine that was underpriced, which I then sold on eBay. And also the guy gave me a model aeroplane as well, which I sold. So we made a profit of 67.87.
Why is the risk level 4 out of 10?
Well, this relies on your knowledge of the things that you're buying and selling. Because if you can find the right things, you can make money from them.
I'm really into Star Wars.
Well, Star Wars toys are worth quite a lot of money, and if they're in their packets, you could earn a fortune from them.
All right, you piqued my interest. Where would I look for these things?
Well, Facebook Marketplace is great, and also eBay. And I often look for mistyped titles, and that way you can get yourself a bargain. And sometimes people don't photograph the things very well, so they're going to go for a lower lower price.
I better get myself a bargain then.
And the great thing with this is you can repeat the process over and over again. One guy went from a paperclip to an entire house. Investment number 6 is Samsung individual stock. And we chose this stock by having a dartboard on the wall. And we had 20 randomly selected companies around it. And we landed on Samsung.
So this was a completely random investment?
Yeah, and as you can see from $100, we've actually made a return of 19.4%, which is actually $19.43.
Wow, so that's with a risk level of 6.5?
Yep, so the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Would you say luck was involved in your dart throw?
It was lucky I hit the board, not only blindfolded, I didn't have my glasses on either, so it's a absolute wonder. Of course, luck and timing is always a critical part of stock investing. Of course, you can do it without throwing a dart at the board because you can do fundamental analysis.
What's fundamental analysis?
So that's when you look at the financial statements and balance sheets and also the leader of the company. And this can all be found on Yahoo Finance if you're interested.
So what's the best way to get started?
Well, if you deposit $100 on Webull, they'll give you 4 free stocks at the moment. I'll leave the link below. And for you, Tom, I'm going to leave a link for Trading 212. If you want to pick up a free stock, that's fine if you're in the UK or Europe.
Free stock for nothing? Count me in.
Investment 7 is crypto, and we decided to invest in Bitcoin. We invested $100 as before, and we got a return of plus 98%. So in a month, we've made nearly 100% of our money back.
That's amazing. So are these actual coins?
No, they're not actual coins, but they're digital coins. The great thing with Bitcoin is it's decentralized, so it's not actually controlled by any government. And this puts some people at ease because the banks can't control their money.
So can I spend this Bitcoin?
Yes, and more businesses are actually accepting Bitcoin now, and the more that do, the more the value goes up. And remember, this dollar, it's just losing its value because they're just printing more and more. And that won't happen with Bitcoin because there's a limited supply.
But I heard about Bitcoin, they're making them all the time.
Well, actually, they're just mining them, and they're finding all the little bits that are out there. And once they're all found and they're all mined, that's it, there's no more. And that'll probably happen in the 22nd century.
So that's quite a
$1,000 cash in my bank account, and I had a net worth probably 3 times that. But it wasn't always this way. A little over 3 years before this, I was buried in what felt like crippling debt. Now, I really understand if you're starting from zero or even in debt like I was, it can feel impossible to move forward. And I'm not here to tell you this is going to be easy, but with the money saving tips and strategies I'm going to be sharing with you today, it's certainly possible to get some money saved up. The only reason I can remember the exact amount was because at 22, I spent $100,000. Hold on with that, I'll tell you how I spent my 100K later in the video. Let's first talk about how I got into debt and how you can avoid making the same mistakes. I remember when I just turned 18, a friend of a friend agreed to sell me his car. I didn't have the money at the time, but he convinced me it was a good idea to take out a credit card and completely max it out. I didn't really understand how credit cards work because they never really covered that in school. But he told me if I fixed up the car a little bit, I'd be able to sell it for a profit and pay off the credit card within a month. And then I wouldn't be paying any interest. Now, being young and a little bit silly, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. A few days after buying the car, you've guessed it, the engine blew up. I had been sold a faulty car and I was left with a large credit card bill that I had no way of paying back. Over time, this credit card bill started growing until I felt it absolutely crippled me. In that moment, I made a promise to myself that if something sounded too good to be true, then it probably was. I remember sitting back on this big old brown couch and wishing it would just swallow me up. My credit score was terrible, my future didn't look great, but I decided I wasn't going to let my life be ruled by one mistake. I wanted to pay off my debts and save lots of money, and you can unlock exactly how I did it, just by clicking that thumbs up button. So first I started tracking all of my money. Every penny that went in and out of my bank account, I tracked. I thought of my bank account a bit like a ship with a hole in it, and it was slowly dragging me down. I needed to find the holes so that I could fix them and get my life back on track. Nowadays it's even easier to do this, as you can download a budget management app like Yolt or Mint. I'll leave some links in the description below. Trust me, if you take the time to do this, you will be amazed how much much money you're losing from little expenses you don't really need. One that's a huge problem now is all the subscription services, you know, like your cell phone, Netflix, and even those mystery boxes we all sign up for. Now we sign up for these things and then we never cancel them, and every month they leech off our bank accounts even if we don't use them. By tracking everything, it gives you a much better idea of your financial situation. Once you understand where your money's going, it's actually much easier to take control of it. With this information, I was able to take the next step and set some targets. Without a target, it's very, very hard to save any money, because as soon as something shiny and new comes along, you end up blowing all your money and having to restart from zero. A target gives you a direction and helps you to resist all those personalised ads on social media that are trying to separate you from your hard-earned cash. I first had a year-long vision, which was to be entirely debt-free by the end of the year. But I knew if I was going to achieve that, I needed to break it down into manageable steps. When I started working backwards from my vision and thinking how much I needed to save every month, every week, or even every day, everything seemed much more achievable. I knew that if I hit my savings targets every week, then I would achieve my vision. These are called process targets, and they're great as they allow you to take small steps towards a big vision. The only thing that could stop me now was myself. So I needed to set some rules. I fully committed to these rules, and I printed them out and I stuck them on my bathroom mirror. Every day I would read them so that I would stay on track. It made it a lot easier for me to make the right choices when I was tempted to give up. Rule number 1 was save first and live on what was left over. By making my targets more important than my lifestyle, it meant I never had that much money to waste, so I made the most of every penny. Rule number 2 was wait 24 hours before buying anything. Have you ever really got excited about buying something and then a few days later that feeling just fades away and you start to regret what you've bought? By waiting 24 hours to buy something, you're able to think about it with a much clearer mind. Just doing this has saved me so much money, especially when I nearly bought a jet ski. My friend had just bought one of these and was going out every weekend and having a great time. He gave me a go, and as you can imagine, I absolutely loved it, so I decided I'd buy one. However, I waited 24 hours and decided to just go out on my friends for the next 4 weekends. I had a great time, but then he decided to sell it. He said he was bored of it, and he was, to be honest, I'd enjoyed riding it, but I felt the same. So by waiting that 24 hours, it saved me a big impulse purchase I would have regretted. Rule number 3 was not to fall victim to peer pressure and lifestyle inflation. You know, it's so easy to increase your spending when you start earning a little bit more money because you want to impress your friends and your family. But if you can resist this, you'll be able to save a lot more. I actually still shop at the cheapest grocery stores because I know it's all the same stuff, just better value. The next step was to start paying off all my high interest debts. I had lots of different debts, some from friends and families and others from credit cards. And as bad as it may sound, I needed to prioritise the highest interest debt first, which was the credit cards, as they were actually costing me more money and also destroying my credit score. There was really no point having money in a savings account paying 1 to 2% interest if I was still paying down a loan that was charging me 20+%. By paying that off, that was like getting a 20% return on the stock market, which is pretty spectacular. So if you have debts and money in savings, then pay them down. That's what I would do. It's the best guarantee return you're ever likely to get. So I stopped using my credit cards and I set up automatic payments so that I wouldn't be late paying back any of my bills. The faster I could pay these debts off, the better, and then I could be using my credit cards responsibly to build my credit score. In order to do this, I had to master the next
early enough to become a millionaire. On that note, about a month ago, I gave Laura $1,000 to invest however she liked. She'd never done anything like this before, and you guys loved it so much that you've been asking for an update. So, here it is! Firstly, we discussed how to overcome the fear of investing, because it's all about getting started.
Not really for me. I don't really know much about it. Bit risky.
Next, we'll be revealing how much money she made.
So I put £240 in, and it's now worth...
And finally, unpacking her plans for the future.
Not many girls, I feel like, are investing into it. I kind of like to be there and go, nope, we can do it as well.
Watching this video all the way through will put you in the best position when it comes to making money from investing, as we're going to be showcasing real results with realistic amounts of money. So make sure to smash that thumbs up button for the LTube algorithm, and we'll get started straight away. Hi Laura, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. You know what, it's been a couple of months since we started this investing journey.
That's gone so quickly.
It certainly has. So what I really want to know is, what did you actually think about investing and what are your thoughts on it?
So before I kind of started, I was a bit apprehensive about it, didn't know much about it at all. But the best way to start learning more and more and become really invested in the whole investment process is to actually start. So that was great that you gave me the ability to start doing that. I think it's just the unknown, and the whole link, it kind of seems a bit like gambling. I think you have to just kind of build the trust in it and learn for yourself and know that if you invest and you lose some, then that's you can live with that.
So it's more of a misunderstanding, isn't it? And probably because it's not been taught in schools to give people the confidence to go ahead and to do it. And what about your friends as well? Because that's another key thing, isn't it? So have you spoken to any of your friends about the investing?
I have a little bit. I know I mainly spoke to my brother about it, and I was trying to get him to sign up for a free share, and then it's just the signing up process for him.
Yeah.
So once he signed up, I think it'll be fine. And I was going, look, Mark and Curtis do this, it's absolutely fine. But yeah, it's just building that trust. And I think as he sees whether my investments have done well and things like that, I think he's just keeping a little sneaky eye on mine, and then he might do it himself as well.
Yeah, I think that's always a bit of a shame to look at it that way, from the way he's looking at your investments and only going to go into them if they go up. I think people need to look at them as a very long-term thing that you're putting money into over a period of time. So maybe you can give them a nudge and say, look, don't wait, because there's no time in the market. It's time in the market that you need. You've got to stay in there.
You've also actually just reminded me of something he said the other day. He said whether he was a bit too late to the Tesla. So I don't know whether, because there's so many stories about people having shares and coins and things, and then it goes up exponentially, and then they wonder whether it's going to plateau or go down from here.
Well, that's the whole thing about time in the market. Nobody really knows where the market's going to physically go. Now, if you take Tesla as a prime example, if I said to you Tesla's going to be $2,500 this time next year, would it be too late to invest? No, exactly. So, we don't know where it's going to go, and trying to time that market will mean you'll never actually get in, because the excuse to get in will be, oh, the market's too high, and the other excuse will be, oh, it's falling, I don't want to get in while it's falling. So there's always an excuse not to invest, and that generally stems around people trying to time the market. So I think you might need to have a word with him.
I will. I feel bad now. Sorry, Michael.
So you mentioned a free stock there, and that's a really good way to get started. And we've partnered up with public.com in the USA, who are actually offering you a free stock worth all the way up to $1,000 when you sign up. And if you're in the UK, you can sign up to free trade, and they're offering a free stock worth all the way up to £200. It's basically free money, and I'll leave the links in the description below if you're interested in getting started. Let's talk about stocks. Can you remind us all, because we all want to know, what stocks you bought?
Yes, so I bought Tesla and an S&P 500.
Okay, so how are they performing?
They're actually doing really well. I feel like there's been a little boom in the market at the moment. So,
okay, well, remind us how much you invested first of all in each stock, and then we can see where it's gone from there.
Okay, so in Tesla, I put £200, and it's now worth £341.82p.
Wow.
So the gain is £141.82, which is in dollars 190.
That is unbelievable, isn't it?
I know, it's crazy.
And how much work did you actually need to do to generate that money?
Absolutely nothing, apart from checking every now and then, because I got so excited, and it goes up and down, and then it just kind of went up.
And that's really because they've come to an agreement with Hertz to supply them 100,000 electric vehicles, and that's the equivalent of a $4.2 billion deal. Not only that, in Europe over the last 3 months, Tesla Model 3 is the best selling car. Not the best selling electric car, the best selling car, period. So, what great news when you've got shares in Tesla.
Yeah, definitely. I can kind of tell as I'm driving on the roads, I see more and more Teslas pop up everywhere. So
Well, it used to be a rare sight, didn't it? I remember when I first suggested to Curtis that we get a Tesla, that it was like, well, no one's driving them. You never see any of them about. They can't be that popular. And we really did look, you only saw them now and again. Now they are literally everywhere, aren't they? And they've got a good charging network. That's all I can say. That certainly helps the Tesla brand, because you can charge up quickly, and it just works. We're really happy with ours, and it seems that it's the growing thing.
yeah, definitely. And the kind of move in the future to all electric cars, I know that's kind of been pushed back again recently, but yeah.
And that gain is in a 2-month period as well.
Ideas and ambition, but without action, the life you've always dreamt of will start to fade away. Every day you wait, the more time you waste, and if you're not careful, your life will start to look a little something like this: flat, predictable, and totally uninspiring. This is the reality for most people, spending the past 5 years in the same job with maybe a couple of pay rises if you're lucky. You can even see after these pay rises, the line doesn't improve that much, and sometimes even goes down. This is because the more people earn, the more they tend to spend. The worst part of all is that this lifestyle pattern has become normalized by society, telling you that you're lazy and don't have what it takes to be successful. But even if this has been you for the past 2, 3, 4+ years, it doesn't have to be you this year. I don't believe you're lazy. You're just trapped in a system designed to keep you spinning your wheels on a flat line, convincing you that slow progress is the only way. So what you're feeling isn't laziness, it's frustration with a path that was never designed to help you thrive. Today's video is all about my 5-stage process to escape this trap and start creating some real momentum in your life. So let's get to it. Stage 1 is called stagnation, and I'd imagine that is likely where you are right now. The reason you feel like you've been thrown in at the deep end without any preparation or guidance is because that's exactly what's happened. You leave school and get your first job, and that's it. You're left to your own devices. So you play it safe by sticking it out in the same job, taking 0 chances. If you stay in this stage too long, you risk becoming a debt slave where your income barely keeps up with your monthly expenses. Right now, the national debt clock is sitting at $36 trillion and increasing by the second. If this doesn't prove that our society is built on debt, then I don't know what will. People are owning fewer houses, fewer cars, and fewer luxuries as the trend of renting instead of owning grows. This isn't just happening because times are changing. The elite have made their plans clear with something called the Great Reset. This aims to shift power away from people by depriving them of ownership and controlling it all themselves. Imagine the government owning your home and then letting someone else live there whenever you're away. This is the future they want, and it means escaping society's trap will be nearly impossible. They've sold us the lie that money doesn't make you happy. This was created by the rich to control the poor, keeping us dependent on state pensions that barely cover anything. In reality, money equals freedom, and freedom equals happiness. The rich are just going to keep getting richer, so why not just join them? If you can recognize this stage early, then you can take those calculated risks to get out before it's too late. Don't be part of the 58% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, which I reckon will increase over the next few years. The first action you take is the most important. Start by gaining full control of your finances. Track every dollar you spend and be honest about what's essential and what's a luxury. Use this awareness to automate your savings so you consistently put money aside each month, no matter how small the amount. At the end of the day, even your Xbox is smart enough to save your game progress, so why not save your funds? The next stage is called ignition. Now, believe it or not, more than 50% of people never even get to this stage, which means this is when you might start to see a difference between you and your friends. At this stage, you're doing everything you can to break out of stagnation, but it's pretty hard because you've got a couple of things that are holding you back. First is your friends. They won't always like your new attitude, as it forces them to either change themselves or be left behind. Both of these things are very painful. So instead, they will try to drag you back down to their level, as that's the easier option. I'm sure you've experienced this before. When you tell a friend about one of your achievements, they don't seem that happy for you and try to shift the conversation to be all about them. The second issue you're going to face is inflation. Keeping all the money you save in the bank will actually slow you down in the long run and create more stagnation stages along the way. So, how does this happen? Well, due to inflation, the value of cash in your account diminishes year after year. Here's a calculator that shows you the impact of inflation on your savings over time. Now, let's say you have $5,000 in your bank account and you're not earning any interest. If inflation happens at a rate of 2.5% a year, which is pretty normal, in 20 years, your $5,000 will still look like $5,000 in your bank account, but it will only be able to buy the same amount of stuff as $3,051 could buy today. So even though the numbers don't change, the real value of your money shrinks because things get more expensive. That's why saving money in a way that grows over time is so important. So now let's compare that with a scenario where you invest your money. So if you were to invest that same $5,000 into something like the S&P 500 and average a 7% annual return adjusted for inflation, the estimated value of your money after 20 years would grow to over $20,000. However, it's important to note that there are no guarantees. Investment returns can go up and down, and past performance is not a guarantee of future results. So this really shows the power that compounding returns can have over time, instead of letting inflation eat away at your hard-earned cash. If you want to get involved with investing, then I'd recommend you download the Trading 212 app, where you can invest as little as £1 or euro to get started. Even if you manage to invest £5 or euros per day for the next few months, it will really help you get started with those first steps and break out of that stagnation stage. Since I was planning to talk about Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free fractional share worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus, you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested. Just remember only to invest what you can afford to, and don't starve yourself of cash, as there's a lot we need to do in the next stage. Next is the acceleration stage. Now, this is where you're starting to gain some real momentum, but what got you here won't be enough to carry you to the next stage unless you want to wait decades to achieve financial freedom. This is the time to accelerate. You need to fully commit to taking advantage of current opportunities, as they won't be around forever. At this stage, there are 3 C's that I focused on, which helped me accelerate my wealth dramatically: cash flow, connections, and confidence. Let's start with cash flow. You need a constant supply of money coming into your bank account so that you can use it to generate more wealth. Think of cash flow as the fuel for your financial engine. The best way to generate cash flow is to start a side hustle that provides immediate income. This doesn't have to be your billion-dollar unicorn idea. It can be a small, service-based side hustle with low startup costs that meets a specific need. Whether it's
watch expert ever. But it wasn't always this way. Today I want to understand what makes Nico tick. This means diving into his background, his businesses, and his deepest insecurities. This is a story you don't want to miss a second of, as you've never seen him open up like this before.
This is something I haven't digged in many years, if you know what I mean. So
let's wind his rags to riches story back to the beginning.
Now, as I understand it, you were brought up in Amsterdam and you moved to Ireland. So what initiated that big move?
a change in life. I needed a change in life desperately. Being unhappy, being lost, just a change of scenery, change of friends. I wasn't rolling in the right circles, and I wanted to achieve something in my life. I just wanted to be happy, and I wasn't.
So what was the dream?
I had the opportunity to prove myself in Northern Ireland playing football. I moved to Northern Ireland, packed everything I had, but unfortunately, I broke my ankle in literally my first month.
So your dreams came shattering down there. So how did that feel mentally? I mean, that puts a big void in your life.
I was devastated, achieving becoming a footballer, though that was my main goal. It was all I knew. I wasn't doing well at school. I don't have any diplomas. That's all I wanted to do, and that's all I did when I was younger. I didn't achieve it. I let my parents down, and I've lived with that for many years after. My parents gave up everything for me to clear the road so I can play football, and I can maybe even make it a job. I remember my first surgery in my left knee. It was just a simple surgery. You call it a meniscus surgery. You drill 3 holes, they do a camera and fix whatever they fix, and over with. We all thought that was it. But all of a sudden, listen, the first surgery, we found the problem and we couldn't fix it. And it's like, oh, okay, talk to me. How do we fix it? So I'm like, we'll have to reconstruct your entire knee and this and that. And it's like, but like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It meant like that I had like 5 or 10% chance to play football again. That's the first time I've ever seen my father cry. That was rough. That was rough at that time. I have never experienced pain in my life like it, right? If you're ever in a moment of absolute desperation, ask yourself this question. God, if you exist, show yourself, because now I need you the most. Fuck, don't put that shit on camera, please, but fuck you.
But the thing is, at 17, you're not equipped to be able to deal with these emotions, are you?
No,
that's the trouble.
This is something I haven't digged in many years, if you know what I mean. So, wow. I don't know if I told myself this. I don't know if I fell asleep. I don't know. Whatever it is, because I always try to look at things very rational, black and white. But damn right, I had a period where I had no pain. How to break me in that way? Like, fuck me.
Can you see the ball or what? Yeah! He told it.
Pride and opinion in the watch business as it is today is the first time I actually succeeded in life. After everything I've done, I didn't do well at school. In anything I've ever done, every job I've ever had, I got fired.
Do you have a problem with authority?
Yes, significantly. Yeah. And I'm always late as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar problem with being bossed around at work, and I think we resigned in a similar way. I mean, I literally had enough, and I went, that's it, I'm going. There's my notice, I'm off. And I think you had a similar situation.
I remember me driving into the office, and you need to go into the basement, and that's the parking, you park up. And I remember opening the door, and I stepped out of the car, and I knew when I looked around that this was going to be the last time I was going to be here. It's really weird. And I resigned there and then. Within 15 minutes, I jumped back in the car.
Look at this door here, guys. Look at it. Oh, it's a safe door.
Pretty place booked for tomorrow.
I can't even move it.
Wow. So what you see here is basically everything from about £1,000 upwards to $500,000 to even further than that. From extremely rare vintage to really, really cool, quirky watches. Everything you see is watches that I really, really love, and that's what I want to display. Watches that I love. That's the watches I want to sell. That's why I don't sell certain brands. I refuse to sell certain brands because I just don't like them. Yeah. It's passion above profits. That's how I approach it.
So you didn't have a job, you didn't have any plans. What was your first move?
Funny enough, in any of my companies that I have, I've never written a business plan. I just knew I just wanted to go into the watch world. I'm obsessed with watches, and I fixed and repaired watches as a side hustle, making a few quid. But how do you make money with watches? And that's literally where I looked at. I can either go ahead with repairing and fixing watches, but I'm not making really good money, not good enough to maintain myself. Let's try sell it then.
So what was the first watch you bought and sold?
Tudor Pelagos, Breitling Navy Timer, and a Rolex Datejust, reference number 116234, Black Dial.
So straight in?
Straight in, no kissing.
No plan B?
If you give yourself the slightest possibility that you have a safety net or there's an exit, and you'll never ever push yourself to the limit. Never.
Well, selling one or two watches is one thing, but scaling that, how did you bridge the gap?
I got a lot of help, a lot of incredible people. I'm a foreigner in a country that isn't mine, selling watches at the boot of my car. I mean,
That's mad, isn't it?
that's fucking mad. I don't get why people actually trusted me at the time. I wouldn't have. Like a guy that no one knows, who are you? I could have easily swapped it for a fake one. That's not me. In my small way, I wanted to make a small impact on the watch industry.
So how does it feel to have this vault here with this massive collection of watches in?
It is a really, really special feeling. I'm not very often in the shop anymore, but to give you an idea, when I started my business and when I got the shop fitted, and it cost me about 26 or 25,000 pounds to fit the store up, and that was the last money I had at the time. I didn't really have any watches because I had to sell everything to build the shop. I sat here on that chair for 2.5 years, every single day at 8 o'clock sharp till 6 o'clock, every single day, including a Sunday, to just try to sell some watches. And the funny bit is I didn't even have a card machine. I've sat on that chair for 2.5 years every day, no daylight, nothing, just to build the business to where it is now. It's unbelievable, like.
It's great, isn't it?
Aye.
So what's the most expensive watch you've ever sold? Because that's got to put you on such a high as well.
The most expensive watch that my team and myself have ever sold was $7 million US.
$7 million. So was that one lump sum? Here's a watch, here's $7 million.
No, it was different. It was, here's the money, here you have the watch.
In reverse. So you always mention your team and you're very respectful of those.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have made it on your own?
You're only as good as the people you have around you, right? And I have incredible people around me, right? And genuinely, to scale a business, no one can ever scale a business alone. It's impossible. You can have an idea, you can have visionary. You're not a superhuman, right? I am not very good in organizing things. I am most probably the most chaotic person on the planet. But if I commit to something, I do it. And I will finish that job. Why I wouldn't be able to do it with my team is because everyone has its qualities.
Well, I think the mark of a good businessman is to recognise someone that can do something better than yourself.
Oh.
And as soon as you get to that stage, you keep recognising parts of your business that can be done better by someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, hiya, alright.
Stephanie, meet Mark.
Hello.
Ashley,
How are
meet
you,
Mark.
Stephanie,
Nice
alright?
to meet you.
Alright then. Ashley, did you say, yeah? Hi, alright then.
So this is where the magic happens. Admin, office, my personal life, and all sorts of things are being arranged here.
I mean, that's a job, isn't it, organising here? My life.
That's a nightmare.
I like the mural on the wall. Brilliant, isn't it?
So this is the Amsterdam Arena. This is a surprise. This was Stephen's surprise whenever we moved in. A bit of home. A bit of home on a pitch I was supposed to play.
More magic.
James is all those photos that you see on Instagram, these beautiful fucking photos, that's James. So everything is taken
Nice to meet you,
specific
James.
way. James, this is Mark.
It's nice to meet you. So the pictures obviously are the aid to selling, aren't they? Without a good,
Exactly.
Without a good photographer, he'd be no one, would he?
Exactly. Exactly.
So everything was going well. So was it plain sailing from there on?
Not really. No.
Tell me about it.
COVID hit. COVID changed my life.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. Close all shops. You must stay at home.
Our business stopped, mate. No one was buying nothing. I didn't know what to do. I was panicking. I took half my stock and sold this at big losses. I gave up on my company on the first week of lockdown. I gave up. I just gave up. It was done. I failed again. I'm a disappointment again.
That's lived with you for a long time, this disappointment thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Not being good enough.
Not being
failing.
good enough. No. That's my entire life. I always had the feeling I had to fight, and I always had the feeling I had to prove myself. After a week of feeling sorry for myself, I just manned up. And the first thing I did is I called Stephen, the manager at Goldsmiths. Stephen, I know we've talked about this for a very long time, and I always joked about, but I'm dead serious. Are you joining my business? And I don't know if I can afford you, but are you joining my business? Because I can't do this alone. I can't save this ship alone. I can't save this ship, this sailing ship that is now floating somewhere without any direction. I can't save this myself. I need your help. There's $250,000 here on this bank account for all the shit I sold, right? It's gonna be a risk, and I'm not gonna promise anything, but it's basically do or die. From that moment, we started thinking, how can we do this? We need to fix the website. We need to fix this.
So what started the YouTube journey?
The fact that we needed an alternative way of marketing. We needed a different way of marketing. We needed to save the business, because that bank account, that $250,000 was going down very, very fast.
And starting YouTube for an older chap isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, is it? I know
Are you
from
calling
experience.
me old? Are you calling me old here?
Well, I'd call myself a young 55, so that's about 45. I'd call you an older 35, so that makes you 45. So I reckon we're on a level here.
All right, fair enough.
But it's quite a daunting thing, isn't it, starting a YouTube channel?
It saved my life, it saved the business, and it gave everyone a job today.
Oh my God, this is so official.
Nothing against China. Oh, we got 100K! Caffeine is good for me.
Film as much as you want.
It's my baby.
I will get a tattoo.
A very good morning from California.
Subscribe.
You found a niche where you roast celebrities about their watches and watch collections. Have you ever had any kickback from that?
Recently, I did for the first time, yes. Funny enough, I got my first lawsuit. Wow, brilliant.
Did you enjoy opening that?
I'm actually laughing my balls off.
I was just going to say, did you laugh at it or did you cry? Because it's one or the other normally.
No, I laugh at it.
In the middle, I call this the performance gap. The difference between someone who becomes a millionaire and someone who's just getting by lies in their obsession with closing this gap. Most people's paths look something like this. Up and down, all over the place, and they never reach their end goal. A person who becomes a millionaire in their 50s will have a path a bit more like this, eventually getting to their goal. Now, my path was a little bit different. Now, I managed to go from point A to point B pretty quickly. To be honest, I think the only reason I managed to bridge this gap was because I didn't have any other options. I wasn't particularly talented or smart. I didn't have any qualifications to lean on, and after getting bullied by my first boss, I quit the usual 9-to-5 grind. So I made a promise to myself to become wealthy as fast as possible. I did everything in my power to bridge the performance gap, and I became a millionaire in my 20s. If you only remember one thing from this video, then let it be this. The amount of money you make is always directly proportional to the amount of perceived value you give. To put it simply, the bigger the problems you're able to solve, the more money you'll make and the faster you'll bridge the performance gap. So the first thing I want you to do is draw out a Venn diagram like this. In this section, I want you to write down the things you like to do. So if I was doing this, I'll put down racing cars, flying planes, traveling, and playing golf. I'm sure you have a lot of others you can add, so just go crazy with it. In this next one, write down the things you're good at. Off the top of my head, I'd say having conversations, building and designing models, leading teams, and carpentry. And finally, write down the things that people will pay you a lot for. Let's put down consulting, building structures, and designing complex mechanics. The trap that most people fall into is only considering one of these factors when they're deciding what they want to do with their life. I mean, imagine choosing a job just because you love it, but you're stuck making minimum wage, and before you know it, you're hating what you once loved. Talk about a passion killer. Or picture this, you're good at something, so you make it your job, but you're working your fingers to the bone and still not making enough money. You're stuck in your comfort zone, not really going anywhere. And then there's this scenario where you pick a job just because it pays well, which sounds good, right? Well, not if you're miserable every single day. That's why the only solution to becoming rich and happy is to find something that's in all sections. I call this the value zone. I managed to find this early on by combining my passion for model helicopters with my skill for building models and advice people would pay for. This led me to opening multiple model shops and designing my own brand of models that I sold across the globe. The problem with the way most people look at business is they want to find the side hustle or the method first and then try to fit themselves around it, rather than nailing down their value zone and then finding the correct side hustle to start for them. So now you know how to find your
value zone, it's time to pick the right vehicle to drive you in a straight line to your destination. Let me ask you a question. Would you rather have $1 million in assets or earn $1 million per year? Think about that for a second. Of course, you want both, right? Well, to do this, you're going to need two different vehicles. One for making money and the other one for investing money. Let's start with making money. This should be your active vehicle. Think of it like a motorbike. You can choose between a product-based business like I started, a content business like making YouTube videos, and my all-time favorite, a service-based business. So why is a service-based business my favorite when I produce products and also make YouTube videos? Might seem a bit strange, right? One word: timing. And I'm not talking about timing the market, but instead your career timing. Your initial side hustle should have the potential to rake in about 100k a year. But remember, the venture that catapults you to 1 million or even 10 million a year is not going to be the same. When you're starting, resources are usually pretty tight, so it's smarter to launch a service-based business as it has minimal setup costs. Even better if you could do it from a laptop in your spare time. So take a look at your diagram again and brainstorm a service you can offer within your value zone. Now for investing money. This should be your passive vehicle. Think of it like the sidecar on your motorbike. You know, like the one in Harry Potter. Loads of people treat investing like it's just another side hustle, chasing it with that same get-rich-quick mindset. But here's the real deal. Investing isn't about overnight riches. It's a tool to grow your wealth. And if you do it right, you can just set it and forget it. After you've made your free account, all you have to do is select pies. These pies represent different slices of stock. For instance, if you have a pie with 25% Tesla, 25% Meta, and say 50% Google, and you invest $100, it will be divided amongst those stocks. This means $25 would go into both Tesla and Meta, and $50 would go into Google. You can choose to make these investments at a frequency that suits you, daily, weekly, or monthly. Let's set one up together so you can follow this video step by step. You have the option to use pre-made pies, and there's lots of options in here, such as this one that focuses on companies that pay dividends, and this one here that invest in AI companies. Although this looks simple, please always do your own research into stocks you want to invest in, rather than just trusting the pie creators. This pre-made option is great to give you some ideas, but I encourage you to make your own. So let's go back to select build a custom pie. Now you can select whatever stocks you want to include in your pie. So if you're just a beginner, then simply click the S&P 500 index fund. This allows you to invest in around 500 of the largest public companies in the USA with just one click. This value projection is really awesome as well, as it shows you just how much you could make based on historical averages. I mean, say we invested £5 a day for 25 years. This says that you will have only invested £45,000 and your portfolio could be worth 1.04 million, and if we expand that to 40 years, God, you could have a portfolio worth 17.34 million. But hang on, Mark, isn't investing risky? Of course, stocks can go up and down, and even the S&P 500 has seen good and bad days. However, no one has ever lost any money if they've held for more than 20 years. Even when the market dips, all past dips since 1950 have been made up for by market rises. In simple words, the S&P 500 shows that playing the long game and sticking with your investments can be really worth it. It's personally made me millions without me having to do any work. That's why I'm such a big fan. Since I'm planning to talk about the Trading 212 app anyway, I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus you get more free stocks by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. Right, now you've nailed down your value zone, got your active money generating vehicle, and set up your passive investment app, it's time to think about the next section. One of the biggest lies gurus tell you is that you need 7 different income streams to become successful and reach your end goal. This causes people to get so caught up juggling multiple income sources and their social lives that they end up slowing down and losing their focus completely. You have 3 main limited resources: money, time, and energy. If you want to do this with me, grab a piece of paper and 3 different coloured pens. Firstly, make a list of everything you do in your life. This should include everything. Now draw a graph like this and divide it into segments corresponding to the number of items on your list. For my example, that would be 6 segments, but for you, it could be more or less. First, use a colour to shade in the proportion of money you spend on each segment every month. Then use a different colour to shade in the amount of time you spend on each activity monthly. Lastly, use yet another colour to show the amount of energy each task requires. You should have something that looks a bit like this. Here's the key: your resources will always be limited. While it might be possible to increase the amount of money you have, increasing your energy and especially your time just isn't possible. When I do this activity with people, it's amazing how much they spread their resources to all different areas of their life. Now, I do get work-life balance, but when you're trying to build your wealth at a quick pace, you really can't spread yourself too thinly. When I was building my first business, I put my head down and I worked like crazy. When I snapped out of it, I'd lost a large chunk of my social life, I was out of shape, and I hadn't spent very much time with my family. Now, was that healthy? Probably not. But did it make me successful? Very. I devoted all of my resources towards a single business for an